At the Thanksgiving invite, her son had been blunt. "You'll help with cleanup afterward." Miriam Hale didn't raise her voice. She simply declined. "Good luck with your dinner," she said, and hung up. What should have been a family celebration was already curdling into something small and mean. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and say where you're watching from. Miriam would never have added that line to her life, but this is how the story was told to her online later, reduced to captions and hashtags. The truth began on a quiet Tuesday. The envelope arrived with the mail, heavy cream paper, an expensive stock Miriam recognized at a glance. The same fussy stationery Brooke, her daughter-in-law, had used for the wedding announcements, the gender reveal party, the baby shower, the sip and see, and every other event that demanded recognition but never offered gratitude. Miriam's fingers traced the raised copperplate letters while her coffee went cool beside the sink. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Thanksgiving at the Riverside residence. Please arrive at 2:00 p.m. Sharp, traditional attire requested. Traditional attire, as if Miriam needed a dress code for her own family, as if a woman who had fed 3 children and hosted 30 Novembers didn't know what to wear to pass the gravy. The kitchen seemed to cinch tighter around her. Faded sunflower wallpaper, a laminate counter that had seen better decades, appliances that wheezed. She had grown accustomed to this pared-down existence at 70, the modest Sacramento apartment she'd taken after selling the family house, the careful balancing of Social Security with a few shifts of part-time bookkeeping, the evenings that used to ring with slam-shut doors and teenagers rummaging for snacks. Downsizing had been her choice. The tone of the invitation made it feel like a demotion. She stepped to the living room window. November's low gray lay over the city like a wool blanket. 3 floors below, her 15-year-old Toyota sat in a line of economy cars and dented trucks. The bumper was held in place with 2 black zip ties after last month's tiny collision in a parking lot. The estimate had been $800. Money she didn't have, wouldn't borrow, and refused to beg for again. Her phone chimed, Brooke's ringtone, a jaunty trill Miriam had assigned years ago, back when she believed they might become friends. "Hi, Mom Hale," Brooke said in her practiced, patient voice, the one she used with senior volunteers, delivery drivers, and anyone she wanted to keep in a polite box. "Did you get our invitation?" "I did." "Perfect. I just wanted to make sure you saw the schedule. We're doing things a bit more structured this year. The children's table eats first at 2, the adults at 3:30, and we'll need you to help with cleanup afterward. Since you're not bringing anyone this year." The sentence landed like a slap. Walter had died 2 years earlier. Miriam had attended every holiday alone since. Apparently widowhood marked a person as available labor. "I see," she said. Her reflection in the glass startled her. Hair silvered and pinned back too severely, shoulders subtly hunched as if bracing for the next blow. When had she shrunk inside her own outline? "Oh, and I know you usually bring that green bean casserole," Brooke went on, crisp and bright. "But I've already finalized the menu. Maybe grab dinner rolls from the grocery store. Nothing fancy. We don't want to overwhelm the kids with too many options." The casserole, the dish Miriam had perfected over 3 decades, the one Ethan used to request for his birthday instead of cake. The recipe she'd taught her own mother after the war, when brands were different, and you learned to make flavor with patience. Now she was being directed toward supermarket bread. "Actually, Brooke, so sorry the caterer's on the other line for the tasting. See you Thursday." Click. Miriam set the phone down as if it might explode. Behind her ribs something trembled, anger or grief. At 70, they could feel the same. Uninvited memories jostled forward. Ethan at 8, pleading for the good green beans for his Little League championship dinner. Lila at 16, parading a boyfriend through the house with calculated carelessness because she wanted him to taste Mom's holiday food. Even Adam, the youngest, calling from his dorm to ask for proportions because his roommates didn't believe any mom made a sauce that way from scratch. When had she become dispensable? When had what she offered become inconvenient? Miriam wandered to her bedroom closet. Neat rows of practical blouses and soft cardigans, shoes that didn't pinch. In the back, under a dry cleaner wrap, hung the deep plum dress she'd worn to Lila's wedding. It still fit, though she'd lost weight in the past 2 years. Not dieting, just the way grief presses your appetite flat. She raised the dress against herself and remembered who she'd been the night she wore it. She'd walked Lila down the aisle because Walter was too sick to stand. She'd paid for flowers when the budget buckled. She'd listened to the groom's toast with a held breath, waiting for a thank you that did not come. The speech had been about beauty and luck. It had not been about the woman who'd made 100 quiet choices to carry them there. She returned the dress to its hanger, traditional attire requested, like she was a guest actor in a pageant, not the matriarch who had rehearsed this scene for decades. In the kitchen again, her hand went to the wooden recipe box, wedding gift from her mother, 47 years ago. The index card slid free without looking. Miriam's green bean casserole, written in her own young hand. The corners were rounded with use, dotted by translucent stains of cream and broth. She could bring it anyway, she thought. Arrive with the dish steaming under foil and make room on Brooke's curated table. Force Ethan to choose between his wife's control and his mother's traditions. She knew she wouldn't. She could already picture Brooke's tight, performative smile and couldn't bear to be scolded with politeness in front of her grandchildren. What a ridiculous calculus to protect children from their mother's disapproval by becoming smaller in your own eyes. Instead, she sat at the table and wrote a list on a yellow legal pad. Dinner rolls, the cheap kind from the discount rack. Flowers for the hostess, nothing pricey. A bottle of wine, mid-shelf, safe. It looked like a shopping trip undertaken by a woman grateful to be included. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. Looking forward to Thursday, Mom. Brooke's been planning for weeks. She searched the text for warmth and found none. Polite distance, the kind you'd use with a cousin you see annually. Outside, the gray deepened. In 6 hours, she'd clock in at the accounting shop, a cramped office that smelled like burned coffee and old carpet. She'd spend 4 hours sorting receipts, while Mr. Klein, who had discovered her age last spring, made slow jabs about her speed. The money from selling the house had been eaten. Ethan's legal fees from a messy divorce, Lila's wedding costs that metastasized, Adam's medical school tuition. The remainder covered her rent. There wasn't fluff for pride, but the question rose like smoke anyway. When did I become the person who accepts cleanup duty and day-old roles? When did my family stop seeing me as a human being? 2 days until Thanksgiving. 2 days to decide whether to keep playing the part they'd written for her or write a new script. The office looked exactly as it always did. Cedar-printed air freshener attempting to club the odor of dust, outdated posters about data security, a half-dead plant on the file cabinet. At her metal desk, Miriam was entering totals when her phone buzzed again. Lila. Mom. Brooke said you're just bringing rolls. Maybe grab butter, too? Thanks. The pink heart made it worse. Miriam stared until her eyes blurred and set the phone face down. Ms. Hale? Mr. Klein's voice cracked from behind his door like a snapped ruler. What's taking so long with the Patterson file? My grandson could do that faster and he's in 7th grade. 6 months ago, she would have apologized. Today, a new steadiness clicked into place. "I'm ensuring accuracy, Mr. Klein," she said. "You've mentioned often how much you value that." He studied her from the doorway, as if she'd just spoken fluent Mandarin. "Well, fine. Just get it done." When her lunch break arrived, Miriam drove to the discount grocer. The bread aisle stretched like a beige prairie, plastic-wrapped conformity softened with air. She picked a bag. The rolls yielded under her fingers the way disappointment does when you poke it. At the register, a teenager scanned the rolls, a brick of butter, and a $5.99 bottle of red, barely glancing up. He couldn't imagine being 70 and grateful to be invited to your own family. "That'll be $12.49, he said. Bored. Miriam paid from her envelope system and carried the plastic bag to the car. She sat there with the engine running, staring at the grocery store rolls like they were evidence. $12.49, a price tag pretending to be a place at a table. Her phone rang. Ethan. "Hey, Mom," he began, already harried. "Quick heads up. Brooke's parents and her sister, with the baby, are coming, so it'll be crowded. You might want to plan to head out right after dessert. Thanksgiving night traffic is insane." She closed her eyes, picturing the choreography. Arrive at 2, serve the kids, clean up, leave before anyone had to move a car. Minimum inconvenience, maximum utility. "And Mom, park on the street," Ethan added. "Just easier for everyone." "Ethan," she said, steady, "do you remember our first Thanksgiving after your father and I married?" He stumbled. I wasn't born yet." "We had $43, total. Rent was due. We needed groceries. I bought a 12-pound turkey and made everything from scratch. Your father's grandmother waddled in with her cane. I peeled potatoes until my fingers cramped. Your grandmother told me it was the best Thanksgiving she'd ever had, not because I'm a chef, but because I made her feel welcome." "That's nice," he said, already searching for escape. "I've been thinking about the difference between being welcome and being useful," Miriam said, "and about what it means when someone assigns roles instead of asking what you'd like to bring." He was quiet a long moment. "Brooke worked really hard to make this perfect. We're just trying to keep things smooth for the family, as if she weren't part of that word." "When was the last time you asked how I'm doing?" she asked softly. "Not the polite version, the real one." "We talk all the time." "We exchange logistics," she said. "You speak, I affirm." He bristled. "This isn't fair. We include you in everything." "You invite me to bring bread and leave early," she said. "You ask me to park where a stranger parks." "Ouch, Mom. Brooke's parents don't see the kids much." "And I do?" she asked, too fast. "Robin barely looks up from her phone. Max treats me like furniture." "You're being dramatic." "The kids are polite to me," she said. "That's not love." He exhaled sharply. "Can we just have a normal holiday?" Normal. The word fell between them like a little flag marking the grave of her old role. "You're right," Miriam said. "Thursday isn't the time for drama." He sounded relieved. "Great. See you at 2. She watched a thin bar of sun slide across the dash. "You know what, Ethan? I think I'll pass on Thursday." "What?" "I have other plans." It wasn't true when she said it. It felt honest anyway. "What other plans, Mom?" "I'll figure something out," she said. "Tell Brooke not to set me a place." She hung up before he could marshal concern into control. Thanksgiving morning, Miriam's apartment was still. No casserole pans cooling on towel-lined counters, no timer beeping, no list magneted to the fridge, just the thin scent of a neighbor's bacon creeping under the door. 7 missed calls from Ethan, 3 from Lila, and a text from Brooke with an empathic frown and a sparkle heart. "So disappointed you won't be joining us. Hope you feel better soon." Feel better, as if this were a cold. Lies become true if you let them, Miriam thought. She put on the plum dress, not for them, for herself, and walked to her car without a plan except away. Sacramento's downtown was a movie set on holidays, emptied of its crowds. She drove past the Capitol's shining dome, past office towers that usually disgorged rushing people. The American river's surface moved slow and pewter under the weak sun. She and Walter had walked here on Sunday afternoons, arguing about politics and pointing out egrets. The paved trail was almost empty. A runner, a woman with a stroller, an older man tossing crumbs to ducks in defiance of the sign. Miriam sat on a bench and watched the birds arrow the shallow water. "Good day for a rebellion," he said, catching her eye. He was around her age, perhaps older. Leather jacket that had seen weather, jeans faded by time, not fashion. A person who did not spend his holidays in choreographed perfection. "Is that what this is?" she asked. "Ma'am," he said, grinning, "it's Thanksgiving and you're wearing a dress that says you had a plan, but you're sitting by a river instead of someone's table. That reads like rebellion." He wasn't wrong. She drew her coat tighter. "What are you rebelling against?" "Same thing as you." He flicked a small handful of crumbs and watched the chaos it caused. "The assumption that being older means we should be grateful for whatever scraps our kids toss us. I'm Ray Mendez." He extended a hand. "Retired firefighter. Professional disappointment to 3 daughters who figure my golden years should be spent babysitting on demand." "Miriam," she said, shaking his hand, surprised at herself. "Professional disappointment to 3 adult children who think I should be grateful to scrub their dishes." Ray barked a laugh. "They stuck you with cleanup duty? Cold." "Dinner rolls," she said, "from the discount rack." Harsh. "What made you say no?" he asked. Miriam considered. "My son told me to park on the street. Brooke's family gets the driveway." Ray grimaced. "Parking assignments, the moment you know your staff." They watched the river. Ducks made small wakes like signatures. Miriam felt the first real ease she'd had in months. "So," Ray said, "what's the plan? You can't sit here all day. The ducks will unionize." "I don't have one," she admitted. "You do now," he said. "Let me buy you Thanksgiving dinner." "I couldn't." "Ma'am, it's 4 o'clock on the holiday, and you're by a river in a good dress. I know a diner that stays open for people like us. No Rockwell paintings, just a hot plate you didn't have to pretend to like. Come on." Her phone vibrated. Lila, then Ethan, then Brooke. She watched it jiggle in her purse like an engine part begging to be reinstalled. "Turn it off," Ray advised. "Whatever emergency they have is not yours to fix." Miriam followed Ray's battered Ford pickup through quiet streets, past houses where bright windows showed crowded tables and waving hands. Through glass, she saw a woman her age lighting candles in a kitchen while people shouted happy things and bumped into each other on purpose. Miriam had spent her life creating that feeling for other people. She had forgotten it could exist for her, too. Dottie's Diner waited in a small strip off Fair Oaks Boulevard, a neon sign flickering like a heartbeat. Inside were solo diners checking their phones, a couple of work shirts tucked into good jeans, 3 teenagers in uniform from the hospital down the street, an older couple sharing a slice of pie without speaking. Everyone in the room had chosen or been forced into different rules for this day. Miriam shut off her phone. The resulting silence felt like stepping out of a swimming pool. Thanksgiving at Dottie's ran on gentle efficiency. No one fussed. Plates arrived. Gravy steamed. No one gave speeches about gratitude. People were simply grateful. Ray cut into mashed potatoes as if he meant it. "What's your plan for tonight?" he asked. "When you go home and the siege begins." "The siege?" They'll come hard, he said matter-of-factly. Calls, texts, maybe an in-person visit. The system only works if you show up to run it, she sighed. I've never not shown up. First time's the worst, he said, like jumping off a public pool diving board. Feels like death until you hit the water and figure out you float. What if I don't? He set down his fork and looked at her the way she wished her children would, straight on. When's the last time one of them called just to hear you, not for a pickup, a favor, a dish? She searched memory and came up empty. I can't remember. So, he said gently, what are you afraid of losing? The question made something inside her soften and crack. She had been clinging to scraps and calling it love. The truth was uglier, obligation wearing perfume. My daughter-in-law once said I was lucky they included me so much, she said. Some families put their parents in homes and forget them, she said, as if I should be grateful to be assigned bread. Ray winced. Bars on the floor and they want applause because they stepped over it. Miriam's phone, even off, felt present. She could imagine Brooke narrating her disappearance as concern, Ethan framing it as worry, Lila method acting as hurt. Concern and worry and hurt are useful levers when what you want is control. How did you stop accepting it? Miriam asked. Small steps, Ray said. Stopped apologizing when I hadn't done anything wrong. Stopped explaining my choices like I needed permission. Stopped sprinting every time a mild inconvenience was called a 5-alarm fire. Didn't go over well. They liked me better when I was furniture. The diner owner herself came by. Dottie, apron strings double-knotted, hair in a tidy gray twist, eyes that had seen everything and flinched at little. You two doing all right? We're staging a rebellion, Ray told her. Good, Dottie said. Family's supposed to be a blessing, not a chore chart. When it starts feeling like homework, you hand it back. She refreshed their coffee and moved on. The validation hit Miriam like sunshine after a long hallway. She's right, Ray said. You've been performing gratitude. Miriam's throat tightened. I gave them everything, she said. Time, energy, the best pieces of myself, and now they act like accommodating me requires strategic planning. And you let them, he said, not unkindly. The truth stung because it was accurate. So stop letting them. Ask yourself what your life looks like if it belongs to you. They'll call me selfish, she said. Great, he said. You've been selfless for 70 years. Try a different setting. As if on cue, the phone lit up. Somehow it had come back to life. Ethan, in block letters. Ray shook his head. Let it ring. What if there's an emergency? If there's blood, they'll call 911. If there's casserole, they'll call you. Ethan's call ended. Instantly, Lila's name popped up. Then, shockingly, Brooke's. Brooke never called directly. Answer that one, Ray said, mischief in his eyes. Speakerphone. Miriam hit accept. Miriam, Brooke said, and the tone was one Miriam had not heard from her. Unsteady. Thank goodness. We've been so worried. Ethan said you had other plans, but then you didn't answer, and I'm fine, Miriam said. I'm having dinner with a friend. Oh. Brooke recalibrated in real time. That's wonderful. We just wanted to make sure you were okay. The children keep asking about your green bean casserole and, well, we tried to make it from memory and it's just not. Ray pantomimed a tiny violin. I'm sorry it didn't turn out, Miriam said politely. Maybe next year you could write down the exact recipe, Brooke offered briskly. You know, for posterity. Even in apology, Brooke angled things so the failure was Miriam's lack of outreach. Actually, Miriam heard herself say, surprising everyone, including herself, I don't think I'll be doing Thanksgiving next year. Silence on the line. Ray gave her a small salute. What do you mean? Brooke said tightly. I think it's time for someone else to take responsibility for the holidays, Miriam said. You've been doing a beautiful job. You don't need my help. The children are resilient, Miriam said. They'll adjust. Muffled voices swam through the phone, Brooke covering the mouthpiece, consulting her panel. Let me put Ethan on. I need to go, Miriam said. We're having dessert. She tapped end call. Her heart beat in her palms. Ray beamed. Chef's kiss. They ate pie in a comfortable quiet, two people who had decided that gratitude meant choosing their own company. Outside, dusk gathered, wash blue and thin. Ray walked her to her car. Tomorrow the real show starts, he said. They'll knock. They'll repeat your worst labels back at you. But here's a thing that helps. Brew coffee first. Make them wait. Let your nervous system catch up to your backbone. She laughed. Coffee first. I can do that. He scribbled a number on a napkin and tucked it in her palm. Call if you want backup. When she got home, Miriam put the napkin by the landline, as if it were a talisman. She washed her face, put the plum dress back into plastic, and crawled into bed, with the phone still off. Sleep came without negotiation for the first time in months. At 7 a.m., the siege began. Heavy knuckles on a thin door. She brewed coffee. The pounding continued. The smell of the brew curled through the tiny apartment like resolve. When she finally opened the door, Ethan's face was a funhouse mirror in the peephole, then full-sized, angry, frightened, righteous. Mom, why didn't you answer? I was about to call the police. Good morning, she said. Coffee. He blinked, thrown by courtesy. We need to talk. Yesterday, Brooke is really upset. The kids were asking where you were. Robin cried because she thinks you don't love us anymore. Miriam poured a second cup for herself. He hadn't answered the question she'd asked. He hadn't asked for coffee either. Robin is 12, Miriam said mildly. She'll recover from a less-than-perfect casserole. It's not about a casserole, he protested, and his face acknowledged the lie even as his mouth denied it. It's about family, tradition, showing up. The words were calibrated to lodge in the soft places of her heart. They arrived there and found something new occupying the space. When was the last time any of you showed up for me? She asked. Not a call, not a card, showed up. We're busy. Work. The kids. I was busy for 37 years, she said. I still managed to make you feel important. He flinched but didn't concede. So this is punishment? You're skipping holidays because you want more attention? I'm choosing how to spend my time, she said simply. The way you do. From the kitchen, her phone began buzzing across the counter like a beetle. Lila's ringtone. Miriam took a slow sip of coffee. Aren't you going to get that? No. What if it's important? If it's medical, Lila will call an ambulance. If it's emotional, she can text. He stared. The mother he knew apologized first and often. This woman poured coffee and let rings time out. He didn't know where to put her in the system. The phone lit up again. This time, Adam. Miriam glanced at it. Adam never called in daylight hours unless something was truly wrong. She lifted the handset. I should take this. Mom? Adam's voice sounded thin with exhaustion. The background a hospital hum. Lila said you vanished yesterday. Are you okay? I'm fine. I had dinner with a friend. A friend? Surprise, then worry. Who? Someone I met by the river, a retired firefighter. We ate at Dottie's. Silence while he processed. Do we treat you like a burden? He asked quietly. Sometimes, she thought, and sometimes you try not to. Not as much as the others, she said aloud, but yes, sometimes. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. I can do better. I will. Call to hear me, she said, not to assign me. I will. I love you, Mom. She set the phone down as if it might break. Ethan watched her, unequipped for conversations that didn't resolve into action items he could assign. Adam gets it, he said finally. I hope you will too, she said, but I'm not folding myself back in half to make it easier. He sank onto her small sofa, suddenly looking older than his 37 years. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Brooke and I, we plan. You not fitting the plan feels like chaos. Maybe the plan needs a new category, she said, gentler now. Me, not a task, a person. He rubbed his jaw, bewildered and bruised. What about Christmas? What about it? She asked. Are you coming? I don't know yet, Miriam said, and smiled when she felt the answer loosen something caged inside her. For the first time in decades, December belonged to her. After Ethan left, confused, less combative, Miriam sat at the small table and made a list. Not chores, not menu notes, possibilities. Matinee tickets on Tuesdays at the Art House Theater near Midtown. The docent training program at the Crocker Museum. The Tuesday morning walking club she'd seen posted on the community board. A volunteer shift at the library's literacy program. Buying scallops at the co-op and learning to cook them for herself because she liked them, not because anyone else did. A phone call to Ray. She added one more line and underlined it twice. Stop performing gratitude. Miriam woke before her alarm the next morning, not because she was bracing for impact, but because her body felt strangely light, like a door had opened somewhere, and air was finally moving through the rooms. She made oatmeal and let it thicken on the stove while the kettle sang. Outside, a pale slice of sky lifted over the apartment roofs, as if someone had pulled on a blue bedsheet. She set her coffee at the small table and read the list she'd written the day before. The words looked both daring and ordinary. Matinee Tuesdays, docent training, walking club, literacy volunteering, scallops. Call Ray. She dialed before she could talk herself out of it. You survived the siege, he said by way of hello. Round 1, she said. Your coffee first rule worked. He laughed softly. It's the little protocols that save you. I want to return your dinner, she said. Let me buy you breakfast. You offering pancakes or company? He said. Both, she said, surprising herself. 10 at Dottie's? Make it 9:30. Old men wake up with the birds. She smiled. See you then. She dressed with a care that was for nobody's benefit but her own. Black slacks that still fit nicely. A soft teal sweater that made her eyes look brighter. A gold chain Walter had given her on their 20th anniversary, when the children were small and the promises were big. She added lipstick that had gone unused during years of utilitarian errands and emotional triage. Dottie's at 9:30 was busier than Thanksgiving had been. A table of paramedics inhaled eggs near the door. An older couple shared a newspaper section by section. Dottie herself waved them toward a corner booth. Look at you two, she said. Back for the victory lap. We're here for fuel, Ray told her. She started a revolution. Keep it civil, Dottie said. Civil revolutions last longer. They ordered. The coffee tasted less like necessity and more like a choice. Ray asked about Ethan's visit. Miriam described it without dressing the truth, then told him about Adam's call and the way the apology had slid across the line like a warm cloth. Start there, Ray said. Build from the one who can say I'm sorry without an invoice attached. They'll try another approach, Miriam said. Brooke will talk to the children. She imagined the kitchen island, the perfect stools, the apple slices cut into identical wedges. She could almost hear Brooke pitching compassion as a performance. We should forgive Grandma. We should invite her to something easy. She pictured Robin's narrowing eyes, Max's boredom. The chess pieces were already moving in her mind, and she didn't want to play. I don't want a front row seat to my own evaluation. Then write the terms, Ray said. If they want access, they learn the new game. You can be generous without forfeiting the rules. What do rules look like when you've had none? She asked. Try one, he said. No more drop-in emergencies. My time is scheduled, not confiscated. Or, I don't accept assignments, I accept invitations. Or, if you want my food, you get me as a person, not just my casserole. He smiled. There, 3 to start. Miriam folded the diner receipt and slid it into her wallet as if it were a certificate. I'm going to take a walk by the river after this, she said. Then I'm going to the library to ask about volunteering. Good, Ray said. I've got a woodworking meetup in Carmichael at noon. If I turn this long, he lifted his right hand, into something that can hold flowers, maybe my daughters would forgive me, or they'd ask me to make 20. They'll probably ask for 20, she said. It felt good to roll her eyes with someone who understood the choreography of being useful on demand. On the trail by the river, the air smelled like wet leaves and cold sun. A pair of teenagers practiced skate tricks on the path edge, their laughter ricocheting off the railings. Miriam walked until her hips warmed and her breath made small puffs. At a bend where driftwood had gathered, she stopped and watched a heron stand completely still, the kind of patience no one performs for an audience. Her phone hummed once. A text, a photo of Robin in a white blouse, a violin tucked under her chin. The message underneath from Ethan read, Winter concert tonight at 6. We'd love to have you, Mom. The kids miss you. She stared at the screen. There was a time when the words would have lit her up with a need to say yes before any details existed. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Another text, this one from Lila. Family dinner at our Sunday. I'll cook. We can talk. Heart emoji. They were moving to contain her. Invitations disguised as generosity that bent around her days like vines. She didn't distrust the gestures completely. She distrusted the timing. She sat on the bench and held the phone, felt the old reflex twitch through her, the trained flinch to be available, the sprint toward any suggestion of affection. Write the terms, she said aloud, and a jogger glanced at her, then smiled, as if they both knew the trick of talking to yourself in public. At home, she made a new list on the reverse of the old one, slid the pen across the paper without apology. If you want me there, ask, not assign. No logistics disguised as love. No, we're worried, used as a leash. I'll come to celebrate, not to do chores. We schedule in advance unless someone's bleeding. Include me in planning or do not use my name in the story. If you want my recipes, come cook beside me. She read it twice. It didn't sound harsh. It sounded like an agreement with herself. At 4:30, a text from Ethan again. No pressure. Just wanted you to have the info. Robin asked if you could help with her hair before. Brooke says you know how to do the twist they like. Also, traffic is tough. Maybe park on Alder and walk. She could see it. Hair pinned and sprayed in a bathroom that smelled like heated metal and an expensive candle. Robin looking at herself in the mirror and not at Miriam. Brooke passing expedient praise through the doorway. She imagined the end of the evening. A hug that was a shoulder tap. A goodbye before the applause ended so she could go rinse the bobby pins into the sink. Useful. She typed, then erased. Typed again. Thank you for the invite, she sent. I've made plans tonight. Please tell Robin I'm proud of her and would love to take her to lunch next week to hear about the concert. Just the two of us if she wants. I can do Tuesday at 4 or Saturday at 12:30. Let me know what works for her. The message existed under her name like a small, firm bridge. Ethan replied quickly. I'll ask. Saturday probably best. She has practice Tuesday. Thank you, Mom. It means a lot. She could almost feel Brooke peering over his shoulder, calculating the degree to which a grandparent lunch would interfere with schedules, budgets, narratives. Miriam decided that if lunch became a negotiation that stripped it of its joy, she would cancel and try again in a month. She didn't want to train Robin to see her grandmother as another adult who would barter square corners of time for access. She made scallops that night, her tiny kitchen filled with a smell like salt and butter and intention. She set the table for one with the good cloth napkin and the small vase with eucalyptus she'd bought at the market because she liked how it made the room smell like a thoughtful friend had visited. The next morning, she walked into the library with the confidence of someone who had decided that belonging wasn't always an invitation. Sometimes it was a declaration. The volunteer coordinator, a woman in her 50s with a braid thick as a rope, walked Miriam through the program. Weekly tutoring for adults working toward their GEDs, reading practice for second graders on Wednesday afternoons, a monthly conversation group for English learners. "What are your strengths?" the coordinator asked. "I'm patient," Miriam said. "I'm good at making people feel safe when they're scared of getting it wrong. And I know what it feels like to be treated like a task, not a person. I won't do that to anyone." The coordinator smiled. "We need you on Wednesday with the kids and in the adult tutoring room Tuesday mornings. Do you want to start next week?" "I want to start tomorrow," Miriam said. Walking home, she found herself humming, a habit she hadn't had since the children were small and the house was mess and music. She texted Ray a photo of the volunteer lanyard. "Look at me. Official." He sent back a picture of the vase he'd made, rough but solid, more bowl than vase, but undeniably something that held. He added, "Don't tell Dottie, but I cried when the glue took." At 3, Lila called. Miriam let it ring once, twice, then answered. "Mom," Lila said, "I know there's been some tension. I hate drama. I just want everyone to be happy." "I don't," Miriam said mildly. "Happiness is not a reasonable goal to paste over people. I want everyone to be honest." The silence sounded like a door hinge, stiff with paint. "Okay," Lila said, moving carefully. "Sunday dinner is an invitation, not an assignment. I'll do the dishes and you'll sit on the couch and let me bring you things. Fair?" "Closer," Miriam said. "I will come if what you want is me, not my performance. If we need to talk, we'll talk. If we need to watch a bad movie, we'll do that. I won't be attending an evaluation disguised as dessert." Lila exhaled and laughed a little, a soft, helpless sound. "I miss you," she said, and Miriam believed her. "I don't know when it got like this." "When you were small," Miriam said, "I buffered everything before it reached you. You didn't notice the wind because I stood in front of it. Now the wind is acute and the buffer is tired." "Okay," Lila said, voice wet. "Sunday, 6. 6:30, Miriam said, smiling. "I have walking club until 5:30. "You have a walking club?" "I do," Miriam said. "I may be the slowest one there, but I am there." "I love that," Lila said. "Wear good socks. I learned that the hard way." After they hung up, Miriam stood by the window and watched a neighbor's dog trot across the parking lot with a stick held like a flag. Her phone buzzed again, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer. "Ms. Hale?" the voice said. "This is Anita at North Shore Estates. I'm calling as a courtesy to confirm your tour tomorrow at 2. Miriam blinked. "My what?" "Your tour," Anita repeated cheerfully. "Your daughter scheduled it for you. We'll show you the independent living suites, the dining areas, the activity rooms." "No," Miriam said, the word precise as a pin. "No tours." "I understand change can be—" "You misunderstand," Miriam said. "This isn't about change. It's about consent. Cancel the appointment." She hung up and sat with the phone in her lap, and the thud of her own heart in her ears. It was one thing to decline a holiday. It was another to feel the walls draw themselves without a door. She called Lila back. "Did you schedule a tour of a retirement place for me?" she asked without preface. Silence. "Mom," Lila began in a tone that meant she was about to place a gentle hand on Miriam's head and push. "We just worry. That building has so many amenities." "You did," Miriam said, without asking. "We thought you'd say no. Sometimes decisions are easier if we take the first step," Lila said. "You've been lonely. We want you to have people." "You want me supervised," Miriam said, and felt a tremor in her voice that wasn't fear so much as a flare of old sorrow. "You want me where your notifications can tell you I ate pudding at 2. "Mom, I'm not a package you track," Miriam said quietly. "Cancel the tour." "Can we at least—" "Cancel the tour," Miriam repeated. "If you want to talk about my housing, we'll talk. But you won't make appointments for the furniture without consulting the person who sits on it." She ended the call and set the phone face down. The room seemed to rearrange itself slightly, like furniture after a move when you haven't learned where to bump your shins yet. She took a breath, then another. She texted Ray. "They scheduled a tour at a facility for me. I canceled." He replied almost immediately. "That's page 42 of the manual. When they schedule your life, unschedule it." She smiled despite the tremble in her chest. She put on her coat and walked to the drugstore for toothpaste and tape and the small comfort of fluorescent normalcy. At the end cap near the greeting card, she noticed a display of spiral notebooks in happy colors. She picked a blue one and wrote nothing on the first page on purpose. Not every surface needed a label. She liked that the paper waited without obligation. On Saturday at 12:30, Miriam pulled into the lot of a taco place Robin had once declared cool. She'd texted Ethan the plan, and he'd insisted on paying. She had insisted on choosing the location. Robin came in with her violin case, cheeks pink from the cold, a little guarded, a little too old in the eyes. "You look beautiful," Miriam said, and meant it. "It was fine," Robin said about the concert. "I messed up a shift in the second movement, but probably only 3 people noticed, and 2 of them were the judges." "You're not in a competition," Miriam said. Robin glanced away. "It feels like it." They ordered tacos and a bowl of queso for the table. Miriam asked questions that weren't ladders. She didn't climb Robin's answers into advice. When Robin showed a blurry video of a section from the concert, Miriam watched it twice and said, "I love your bow hand. It looks like it trusts you." "Thanks," Robin said, surprised and pleased. "Mom says my posture is bad." "Posture is a thing you can practice," Miriam said. "Trust is the thing that makes the practice matter." Halfway through queso, Robin said, "Mom said you were sick on Thanksgiving." "I wasn't sick," Miriam said. "I was busy." "With what?" "Dinner with a friend." "Oh." Robin's face rearranged itself into 1,000 hypotheses. "Like a boyfriend?" "Like a friend who is a boy," Miriam said with a smile. "He's a grown man, actually." "What's his name?" "Ray." "Does he like tacos?" "He ate pie," Miriam said. "I'll let you know about tacos." Robin hesitated, then leaned in, conspiratorial and hopeful. "Dad said you're mad at us." "I'm not mad," Miriam said. "I'm making new rules. They're for me, but they help other people know how to treat me." Robin chewed a corner of a chip like a mouse would and looked both 12 and 20. "I'm always in trouble for breaking rules," she said. "I don't think I'm good at them." "That might be because the rules you're given don't fit you," Miriam said, "or because the people in charge like rules that keep you smaller than you are." Robin smiled the small, wicked smile of someone who recognized the fabric of that truth. "If I write my own rules, I'll get grounded forever. Then write them in pencil at first, Miriam said. Follow the ones that keep you safe and the ones that make you more yourself. Throw away the ones that shrink you. Robin wiped queso from her fingers. Can we do this again? She asked, suddenly shy. Yes, Miriam said. You can put time on my calendar like I'm important, because you are. On Sunday at 6:30, she took off her walking shoes and slid into flats, carried a lemon tart from the farmer's market, and drove to Lila's bungalow in Curtis Park. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic. A candle flickered on a sideboard, where family photos leaned against the wall. She paused at one. Walter in a baseball cap, Adam 12 and sunburned, Ethan and Lila in shirts too big, Miriam squinting into the light with a smile that looked like it had been earned, not arranged. Lila opened the door with damp hair and a dish towel over her shoulder. You look pretty, she said, hugging her mother, and then stepping back like she wasn't sure how much to hold. So do you, Miriam said. Your kitchen smells like you know what you're doing. I watched 4 videos, Lila said, then did what I wanted. Good, Miriam said. That's called cooking. Dinner was chicken and roasted potatoes and green beans that were almost funny. A nod, and a frontier, and a joke that didn't hurt. They didn't talk about tours or Thanksgiving at first. They talked about the plant in the corner that Lila had managed to keep alive for 6 months. They talked about a book Miriam had picked up from the library and liked, and a patient at Lila's clinic who had brought in a pie as a thank you and then confessed she preferred cookies. After plates had been pushed back and the table had been cleared by hands that weren't Miriam's, Lila said, I canceled the tour. Thank you, Miriam said. If we revisit the topic, we'll do it in the daylight with all the grown-ups at the table, and we'll start with what I want. Lila nodded, pinching the bridge of her nose like she did when something had pressed on her all day. I think sometimes I treat you like a fire extinguisher, she said. Behind glass, break only when needed, then shove back onto the hook and forget until the alarm goes off again. Miriam laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was perfect. I'd like to be a person, with a chair that's mine even when there's no smoke. I can do that, Lila said. Then more softly, will you help me ask for the same thing? From men who believe I can be a fire extinguisher that cooks and smiles? They worked out a plan that wasn't an ambush or a ritual, just a small change with a big echo. Lila would host Sunday dinners once a month, where Miriam was asked to bring nothing but herself. The rest of the Sundays, no one would host. They could call one another for a walk or a movie or silence on the same couch. They wrote the idea on a scrap of paper and pinned it to the corkboard in the kitchen where appointment reminders and a child's spelling list already hung. When Miriam got home that night, a thin envelope waited under her door. No return address. Inside, a photocopy of an old document, a durable power of attorney form naming Ethan as her agent if she became incapacitated. She recognized the notary stamp from the bank near the old house. She remembered the day Walter's doctor had mentioned paperwork, and the word preparedness had skittered over her skin like a centipede. She and Walter had signed documents and filed them, and not looked again. A post-it in Brooke's sharp, tidy hand had been stuck to the copy and then removed. She could see the faint rectangle it had left. Miriam pictured it anyway, a neat reminder that certain powers existed and could be invoked. She imagined Ethan being told this was helpful, that clarity was compassion, that it was better to have the form in a drawer than an argument in a crisis. She did not disagree with the general principle. She disagreed with the direction of the wind. She set the paper on the table and dialed Adam. Question, she said, when he answered on the second ring. If a person wanted to review their legal documents to ensure they reflected that person's current desires, what kind of person should that person call? A lawyer who does elder law, he said immediately. Why? Because a copy of a power of attorney that names your brother appeared under my door with the subtlety of a small marching band. I would like to ensure its language reflects reality. Do you want me on it? Adam asked, so plainly it broke her heart a little. I want to be in charge until I can't be, she said. Then yes, you and Lila together, not Ethan alone. She could hear him scribble. I know someone who clerked for a firm that does this, he said. I'll text you a name. No pressure. You can choose. Tell them you want springing powers, not blanket ones. Thank you, she said, and the words were a braid of gratitude and relief, and the strange sweetness of being helped without being managed. On Tuesday morning, she walked into the library's tutoring room and found 3 adults waiting. A man with hands calloused from work that hadn't been gentle, a young mother with a toddler on her lap and hope in her eyes, a woman with a careful haircut that tried to announce how serious she was. Miriam set out pencils and paper and a bowl of peppermints and said, We will go slowly. We will not be ashamed of not knowing. We will be proud of every little light we turn on. The man chose fractions. The young mother chose reading a form from the doctor's office without asking the receptionist for help. The woman with the haircut chose to learn to write a letter to her sister she hadn't spoken to in years. At the end of the hour, the man laughed out loud because 3 quarters and 2 quarters finally lined up straight in his head. The mother put the peppermints in a tiny row and said, I want to know what I'm signing. The woman touched the paper where she'd written Dear Elena and didn't say anything because sometimes the first sentence knocks the wind out of you. When Miriam stepped into the winter sun, her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. We haven't met. This is Brooke's mom, Suzanne. We're having a small holiday brunch Saturday. We'd love to have you. Robin begged to invite you. 11. Hofta. No need to bring anything. She stared at the message for a long moment. She did not have any particular argument with Suzanne. The woman was a wave that had learned to recede and advance without ever wetting anyone's knees. But Miriam could see the move, an invitation that positioned Brooke's family as the magnanimous center, a staging ground where Brooke could perform tolerance to her mother while setting Miriam at the far end of the table like a distant aunt who didn't quite hear the jokes. She replied, Thank you. I have plans at that time. Perhaps another day in January, just us 2 for coffee. I'd love to know you better. A minute, then 2. Finally, a response. Coffee in January sounds lovely. I'll text after the holidays when things calm down. They would never calm down, Miriam thought, unless someone changed the metronome. But she had offered a tempo that was human. The rest was not in her hands. Thursday's walking club met at a park with a cracked tennis court and a loop that made it easy to tailor distance. A woman in bright sneakers and a tax preparer jacket, Miriam recognized the brand and felt a sly thrill, set a gentle pace. They talked about steps and knees and the one stretch that saves your back. They talked about the good bakery for early morning rolls. They did not talk about children except to nod at strollers going by and say, Cute hat. It was the most restful hour Miriam had spent with strangers in years. After the walk, she sat in her car and texted Ethan. A heads up that I'm meeting with an attorney next week to review my documents to reflect my current wishes. Nothing is wrong. This is the opposite of crisis. I'm okay. I want to make sure my paperwork is too. He called immediately. She let it go to voicemail and then listened. Mom, he said, and the word sounded like a person trying to fit himself through a smaller door. Of course. You don't have to tell me. I mean, you should, but you don't have to. Brooke just thought, we thought, clarity was good. We didn't mean to bulldoze." "I appreciate clarity," she said when she called him back on her schedule. "I do not appreciate bulldozers." "I understand," he said, and she knew he didn't fully, not yet. Will you let me know what you decide?" "I will," she said, "because I want you to know me, not because you need to manage me." On Friday, a small bouquet arrived at her door. Eucalyptus and 2 white ranunculus and a card. "Your presence is not a task." From Lila. She placed the vase on the table and sat with it like you sit with someone who has returned from a trip with a story you want to hear when they're ready. Saturday noon rolled around and she found herself at a community center kitchen for a class on holiday sides. She almost turned around when she saw the instructor was young enough to be her granddaughter, but the girl's grin disarmed her. "We're doing green beans," the girl announced, and the room laughed sympathetically. Miriam raised her hand. "I have a version of a green bean dish that is important to my family," she said. "I would like to volunteer as a sous chef, if you'll let me." "You're hired," the girl said, wagging a wooden spoon. "We'll do mine, and then we'll do yours." They cooked like equals, easy as conversation. The young instructor's version was bright with lemon and almonds. Miriam's was the old way, but with real mushrooms instead of a can and a restraint with the salt that she had learned in her 30s. People crowded the table for both. A woman in a UCD hoodie asked Miriam for her recipe, and Miriam said, "Come over Tuesday. I'll show you, and you'll take the card home in your handwriting." She left the community center with hands that smelled like garlic and a small container of beans for later. In the parking lot, her phone rang. Ray. "I made a second vase," he said, breathless. "It is ugly, and also somehow the most beautiful thing I have ever made with this busted hand." "I taught a girl with perfect eyeliner how to sauté mushrooms," she said. She didn't flinch at the sound when they hit the pan. "Are we doing it?" he said. "Are we living?" "I think we're practicing," she said, which is the same thing, just honest. At home, she opened her notebook to the first blank page and wrote a letter with a pencil that didn't dig too hard. "Dear all of you, I will not be using guilt as a currency anymore. If you want me, ask for me. If you want my help, ask for it, and accept my yes or no without argument. If you want my recipes, come cook. If you want to know me, call without a goal. If you want to plan my life, don't. Things I want, small dinners without speeches, walks where we don't count steps, phone calls that begin, 'Do you have 10 minutes?' and end when we have had them. I want to hear about your days and your friends and the stranger who said something you can't stop thinking about. I want to be invited to your recitals when you want me, not because you are worried what it looks like if I'm missing. I want to sit beside you in ways that don't require me to earn the chair. I will make mistakes as I learn this. You will make mistakes as you learn me. We will practice, and we will forgive the tries that don't work. Love, Miriam." She didn't send it, not yet. She read it aloud to the quiet room at a volume that felt like a promise. Sunday morning, Ethan texted a photo from a coffee shop. Robin doing homework, Max stirring cocoa, Brooke in sunglasses flipping through a magazine. "Good morning," he wrote. "She looks tired but okay. We all do. We're working on it." She sent back a photo of the vase Ray had made, sitting on her table with eucalyptus and 2 white ranunculus reaching like small arms. "Practice makes people," she wrote. "We're learning." Late that afternoon, the attorney called to confirm Tuesday's appointment and asked what she needed. "Boundaries," Miriam said, then laughed. "And some language on a piece of paper that says exactly where they go." "Springing power of attorney will cover that," the attorney said. "We'll also discuss healthcare directives and who you want in the room if you can't speak." "I want people who listen," Miriam said, and people who ask me first. When she hung up, she noticed a voicemail she hadn't seen come in. It was from Suzanne, the mother-in-law who had invited her to brunch. "Miriam," the voice said, surprisingly frank. "When I was your age, my daughter scheduled a tour for me too. I went. I signed. I stayed 3 months, and then I left. I just wanted you to know I see you. January coffee is on me." Miriam sat very still, then very straight. The world was full of women who had walked these rooms and not left notes on the tables for the ones coming after. Maybe January would be a day to compare maps. Dark came early. She turned on the little lamp by the armchair and picked up the book she'd brought home from the library, but didn't open it. She listened to the quiet, which sounded different now that it wasn't a punishment. She thought about her mother's recipe box and about writing a new card for the green beans with words in Robin's hand. She thought about the ducks and the girl with the eyeliner and the man who had cried when glue set against wood. The phone dinged once, a calendar reminder she'd set for herself with a title that made her grin in the semi-dark. Practice Joy. It wasn't a holiday. It wasn't a test. It was Thursday next week, and then the week after, the slotted place where she had promised herself that she would choose something small and let it be enough. When she lay down to sleep, she didn't make an inventory of what she owed. She made an inventory of what she wanted: a walk in the fog, the smell of lemon on a cutting board, a hand to hold during a movie on a Tuesday afternoon. She didn't know which of those would be hers and which she would have to invent. She only knew that the door that had opened inside her was still open, and she would leave it that way on purpose. On Tuesday morning, Miriam dressed deliberately, not for ceremony, but for clarity. Dark skirt, pressed blouse, sensible shoes that didn't apologize for being comfortable. She slipped her notebook into her bag along with a small tin of peppermints. Her appointment at the attorney's office was at 10. The firm occupied a modest building downtown, beige bricks and a sign that looked like it hadn't been updated in 20 years. Inside, the waiting room smelled faintly of paper and lemon cleaner. A receptionist with bright earrings smiled and handed her a clipboard. "Fill this out at your pace, Miss Hale. Would you like water or coffee?" "Coffee," Miriam said, and took her time with the forms. The questions were blunt: assets, debts, insurance policies, current health care wishes. She wrote carefully, aware that every line was a kind of translation of her life into legalese. The attorney was younger than she expected, mid-40s maybe, with kind eyes behind square glasses. "I'm Daniel Greer," he said, shaking her hand. "My colleague Adam recommended you. Let's talk about what you want." Miriam exhaled, the kind of breath that clears cobwebs. "I want documents that reflect my wishes now, not the ones I signed 20 years ago when I was just afraid of being unprepared. I want to remain in control until I cannot, and if the time comes, I want more than one child holding the keys." "Smart," Daniel said, taking notes. "We'll draft a springing power of attorney, meaning it only activates if you're medically declared incapacitated. We'll designate both your daughter and your youngest son as co-agents, so no single person bears the weight or makes unilateral choices. Does that feel right?" Yes. She surprised herself with how certain the word sounded. "And healthcare directives?" "I want to be listened to. If I cannot speak, I want the people who know me to ask what I would have said, not what makes them most comfortable." Daniel nodded. "We can make that explicit. Quality of life over length at all costs. You'll sign 2 originals. One stays with you, one with your agents." Miriam leaned back. For the first time in years, she felt like she was in the center of her own paperwork instead of scribbled in the margins. When she left the office an hour later, Her bag was heavier with drafts, but her shoulders felt lighter. Outside, the winter air smelled faintly of rain. She stopped at a cafe she hadn't been in since Walter was alive. She ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, sat by the window, and let herself feel the steady drum of traffic. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Mom, heard from Adam that you went to a lawyer. I wish you had told me first. It stings." She typed slowly. "Ethan, my decisions about my life are mine. You will always be my son, but you will not always be my proxy. I love you, but love is not management." No reply came, at least not immediately. She put the phone away and finished her croissant in silence. At 3, she met Ray at a small workshop tucked behind a strip mall. The place smelled of sawdust and varnish. He held up his latest creation, a lopsided bowl, varnish, not yet dry. "Look," he said, beaming. "It holds fruit." "Or secrets," she said, running her finger lightly over the rim. He looked at her carefully. "How was the lawyer?" "Like stepping into a room and realizing the chair has always been mine," she said. Ray nodded. "Good. You keep that chair." That evening, Miriam returned home to find a casserole dish on her doorstep, covered in foil. A note taped to the top read, "Just because," from Lila. Miriam set the dish on the counter, pulled off the foil, and laughed. Green beans. Not hers. Different seasoning, different cut, but offered without assignment. She scooped some onto a plate and ate standing at the counter. It was simple, warm, enough. Her phone rang. Adam again, voice hurried, tired, but earnest. "Mom, I just wanted to say, you sounded different the other day, stronger. I'm proud of you. Don't let us drag you back into the old script." "Thank you," she said softly. "That means more than you know." After she hung up, Miriam sat at her small table, opened her blue notebook, and wrote another list. Not chores this time, not boundaries. Possibilities. Teach Robin to make her own green bean casserole. Walk by the river on Sundays with Ray. Invite Lila to a movie instead of dinner. Try yoga at the community center. Keep scallops in the freezer, just in case. She underlined the last line, then closed the notebook. The following weekend, she joined the library's Saturday morning reading program for children. A boy with a gap-toothed smile read her "The Cat in the Hat," slowly, his finger tracing each word. When he finished, he looked up. "I didn't mess up." "You didn't," Miriam said, and the pride in his eyes lit a part of her she thought had gone dark. That afternoon, she and Ray met at the diner again. Over pie, he asked, "So what's next? You've drawn the line. What do you build on it?" Miriam smiled, stirring her coffee. "A life that isn't measured in dinner rolls and parking spaces. A life that belongs to me." Ray raised his mug. "To rebellion." "To living," she corrected. They clinked cups. Later, in the quiet of her apartment, she stood at the window and watched the city lights flicker on, one by one. For the first time in years, the view didn't feel like a reminder of absence. It felt like a canvas waiting to be filled. Thank you for listening to this story and spending your time with me today. If it resonated with you, please support the channel by subscribing and giving this video a like. It truly helps more than you know. I'd love to hear from you. What city are you listening from? Share it in the comments so we can see where our community is growing. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next story.